I'm going to introduce Barbara Poelle. She is a literary agent with the Irene Goodman Agency in New York. She is also the author of, do you have a book to hold up? No.
Hey, wait.
There you go. She is the author of Funny You Should Ask, Mostly Serious Answers to Mostly Serious Questions About the Publishing Industry. And that is based on, she does a regular column with Writer's Digest, which is actually how I stalked her before she became my agent.
Mm-hmm. And I was looking up on page 46 is a question where an answer features Eileen Cook.
Of course, did she tell me that until the book came out? No, she did not. All right. You will also probably eventually guess, Barbara is actually a former stand-up comic, which is not too surprising. She's also done some editorial work, but currently she is agent extraordinaire for me, which is how we actually
Just you. Eileen is my only
client. Although she also does, and I have to give a call out to a few people, Samantha Downing, who did My Lovely Wife, which was one of my favorite thrillers from last year, Ashley Ream, Losing Clementine, and Kat Winter's All of Her Things.
All of the things that were from Kat Winters. Yeah, she's amazing.
All of the things from Kat Winters. So we had some people put in some questions ahead of time. So I'm going to hit some of those. Great. And the first one I know you're never going to see coming, but people are kind of wondering, given the state of the world.
Why, is there something going on?
There's like this thing.
Oh,
and so people are wondering, should they be holding off on pitching at this point?
I sold a book in 48 hours last week. I went out with something on Wednesday and I got a preemptive offer on Friday. I just hired, as of an hour ago, I just hired a new assistant to help me process and get through stuff and double read things with me, because right now is the time. Here's the thing, there's going to be books on the shelves in 2021 and 2022, so mine as well all be mine, right? Like, keep them coming. And let's start this off by saying, if you are interested in querying me, you're going to want to go to barbara.queries@irenegoodman.com. And what I'm looking for is your query letter and the first 10 pages in the body of the email.
So actually, that just gives me a lovely segue to one of my questions. So I will get back to everyone else's, just so you know. But you have kind of a, what I want to call it, a shorthand for query letters, which you like. Did you want to go through the hook, the book, and the cook?
Yes, and I just did finger guns. Gross. Okay, so a query letter should be, it is your book's business card. You want to be professional. Like, I used to be a stand-up comic, but your book does not want you to be one to me. So no pithy openings, no like, hey Babsy. I mean, if you said, hey Babsy, I would probably laugh, but like none of that. Your query letter is a business card for your book. And all it needs to consist of is 3 sections: the hook, the book, and the cook. Now the hook will be your log line. The log line is, you know, great white shark terrorizes small New England town over 4th of July weekend. That you get the whole picture in that hook. Your hook should also hopefully include some comp titles and the word count. So it'll be, my novel is about a great white shark that terrorizes a small New England town over 4th of July weekend. It stands at 78,000 words and fits on the shelf with Peter Benchley's Jaws, which that's what it is. But that kind of stuff, like you're gonna wanna do a comp title in there. Just simple line, get it in, get it out. Next is the book section. 4 or 5 lines of premise, not plot. Like TV Guide it, right? We don't need to know the plot details, just the premise of the novel. And the final section is the cook, and that's you. And all you have to answer in that section is 3 things. Why this book? Why me? Why now? I honestly, if you had an MFA in, you know, writing, that's fantastic. That's where that goes. If you were at your kid's softball game and were struck by an idea and started writing it out longhand, and that's why you did this book, that's fine. If your book has something to do with, you're like, I read Samantha Downing's book, My Lovely Wife, and I've been working on this idea for a couple that does blah, 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 then that's fine too. But just, that's the easiest section. But I want to know a little bit about why this book, why me, why now? And that's it.
That's pretty good. So other questions from people is, do you think publishing is going to change because of what's happening? Like, do you think there will be different trends, like more dystopian, or hopefully,
I mean, isn't dystopian
funny
just called contemporary now? Like, isn't any dystopian novel just like, oh, this is contemporary fiction? You know, publishing always changes, and it would be so incredibly boring if it didn't. But I believe that, well, you look at trends, and right now, Netflix, people are watching Outbreak like for the 8th time. And I'm just like, what, we're living it. And I'm seeing book sales skyrocket, especially ebooks. So clients of mine that usually sell maybe 40% physical, 20% 20% audio, all of a sudden the audio and ebooks are going up because people are staying in their homes and buying them. Yes, it's going to change everything about us as people and everything about us as an industry. What that change will look like, I don't know. If I did know that, we'd be having this conversation from my yacht next year. But what I'm going to do is keep doing what I know how to do, which is facilitate great art.
Awesome. All right. We have some questions just about like behind the scenes for publishing.
Ooh, let's do it.
So if an author has another offer from a different agent, are you more likely to want them?
No. A lot of times what will happen is someone will query me and either I request the material or I don't, but then they'll say, hey, they'll reappear in my inbox and say, I have an offer of representation. I've given everyone until April 3rd to respond. Usually what that does, okay, you'll probably bump up in my reading queue when I see that, because I'll be like, oh, okay, this is kind of a whistle to say, look at this first. But just because someone else wants you, in fact, recently there was something that had 4 offers of representation. And I was like, am I crazy, or has everyone else lost their mind? Because I thought the writing was subpar. I thought the plot was derivative and predictable. I just was so baffled by why there was 4 offers. But what I then can say is, subjectively, that book is not for me, and you're going to find an advocate that's going to get you on the publishing path you deserve. So you don't want me anyway. So no, just because you have an offer doesn't mean I want you to.
How about if that offer is from a publisher?
Depends. It depends on how much I love it. I mean, what I don't want to happen, like if someone comes to me and says, I have an offer from a publisher, it's for, let's just play this. Okay, I have an offer from a publisher. It's for $12,500 for world rights, audio and film. I'll be like, oh. Sometimes I just want to tell that person what to do with that offer anyway, but I'm never going to sign something for a money grab. Never, ever. That goes with, there have been a few times in my life where somebody maybe a little bit notorious has representation reach out to me and say, we want you to represent this person's book. And just because I don't care for that person or the message they're getting, I'll just say no. And a week later I see that they did a mid 6-figure deal. I sleep at night. I'm fine with that. But no, just because you have an offer from a publisher doesn't mean I'm going to hop on that. The only time I would overstep my bounds is to tell you how to manage that offer if I wasn't going to sign you. And that I shouldn't be doing that, but I can't stand stuff like that. If someone's like, I can see all the problems with that offer right away. And that's why I would probably overstep my bounds, but no way I'm not signing unless I love it.
And I think that's something that I've talked a lot about with people is, there's this stage where
I lost Eileen.
Don't fret. Don't fret. Okay, she'll be back. It's all good.
And she's gone. She loves to leave on a high note, though.
She's magic. Poof. Mm-hmm. Yep. Poof. She'll be back. So you can keep on keeping on.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think just to expound on that a little bit, I'm sure there's agents out there that are like, yeah, I will pick up hi, welcome back. Pick up on a contract. I would say the caveat is, I just had this happen with Sam Cheetah. So Sam Cheetah is an author I met a couple years ago at a conference. We hit it off. We liked each other. She had a couple other deals on her own that she was doing. And then she appeared in my inbox and was like, hi, do you remember me? I sold my own book to this publisher, very reputable publisher. And they're starting to talk about a re-up and starting to talk about option material. Would you consider representing me? And I said, you need to send me all your stuff, send me everything, and I need to actually organically want to represent you. Basically what she was saying is, this is money on the table for you, but I still was like, it's not money on the table and it's not serving you if I don't like your stuff. I loved her stuff. She's very pithy. She reminds me of Eileen a little bit, like in conversation, just like really pithy, really funny, very quick-witted. And she writes these rom-coms that have a little bit of edge to them, a little bit of sassy, sardonic, sarcastic edge. And I'm just like, this is all the yes. So I did take on her, but again, I had to read the material first. Oh, my hand talking, sorry. So I met Sam Cheetah, and Sam Cheetah was like, yeah, I'm very expressive.
You acted out. It's lovely. Mm-hmm. It works really well. What is something that you think, and yeah, sorry about, apparently Barbara fired me in the middle of that question, but I'm back. What do you think surprises most authors about the publishing business once they're in it. So
that it's made of like smoke and cheese. Like it's like even a P&L. So in order to make an offer, an editor has to run a P&L report, a profit and loss report. For a debut, you're actually like guessing at things. You're putting in comp titles and what those comp titles sold. So you're kind of like, it's like smoke and mirrors and witchcraft and throwing the bones. And they're like, here's $75,000. So there's a lot of it that is completely smoke and mirrors. And I would say, if there was a blueprint on how to make a book successful, we would do it every time. But I always say this, and I think I say it in the book too, it's like a game of Plinko from Price is Right. Like you can drop the chip in the same point every single time and it's going to come out someplace different. I've seen books that I sold for $1 million sell less than 3,000 copies in a year. And I've seen books that I sold for 15 or 4, for example, one in when I was a baby agent, I sold a book for $4,000 and up selling 50,000 copies. So like you never know, you just don't know. But what I can do is try to grease the laundry chute so I can shove a squealing little piggy down it and have the ride of its life. Did that work?
Sure. I'm afraid I might be the squealing little piggy, but I'm all right with that. Grease it up, baby. All right. So we have a question. If someone has self-published in the past, would it give you any pause to offer representation to them?
Is the book self-published, the one that they're querying me with, or are they self-published?
They are self-published in the past.
That's fine. Great. No, it doesn't. I only care about what you're writing. Like, I don't care about, anything that previously. The only thing I would care about is if you are querying me with the book that you already self-published. That's pretty hard, and that's a no.
Yeah. And if people are interested, I know we've done some talking about that in my office hours about why, if you've self-published a book before, it's really hard to get that picked up in a traditional
It's already
market.
got an ISBN number, it's got a cover, it's already been out there, it's been market tested, and it unless you're sold 15,000 copies in a year, which is kind of an arbitrary bar, but everything in publishing feels arbitrary, it's not really gonna be, you already tested the market and you showed us that it wasn't a gangbuster. So
here's an interesting one, just because I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you answer it.
okay.
Are book tours essential once a book is accepted, and how many visits would an author expect in a month or a year?
Arbitrary, nuanced, completely, I've had authors go on a 12-city book tour, and I've had authors do all their publicity in jammies. I have an author who's an agoraphobic and does not leave the house and is a New York Times bestseller. Completely nuanced, completely arbitrary insofar as what your team feels your audience is doing. So for example, if your audience is American military bases, if they're finding out that, wow, these military bases are really reading your stuff, then what else are families on American military bases doing? Then you go to those avenues because that's where more of your readers are. So, also they're reading Marie Claire, also they're gardening, also they're, okay, so then that's where the advertisement and the publicity push goes. But then they also know, okay, we need to send you to other military bases in America because we're seeing San Diego read, we're seeing military bases reading you. So we know there's more of your audience at military bases, hence the tour.
Fair enough. As a senior agent, which in no way is a reflection on your age.
How dare you?
As a senior agent, do you sign very many debut authors, or are you preferring more established writers?
I love debut authors. I would say probably 60% of my list is from more than that. 70% was debut. They're now, quite experienced and famous. But yeah, I would say I love the slush. I love queries. I love debut.
And how do you authors? Like,
what?
I think there's this idea that a lot of authors are found through referrals. So I'm curious if you find a lot of people in your slush.
I find tons of people in my slush. I love my slush. Referrals would be like, here's the thing about referrals. I feel like if Eileen's going to refer someone to me, she comes directly to me or gives me a call and is like, hey, I'm going to send someone your way. When I see a referral in my slush, like I met Eileen Cook at a conference, I really like what she had to say, so I'm reaching out to you. I can tell that's kind of like a circumnavigated referral. Like real referrals that I get from clients are generally the client's going to send me an email and be like, I'm sending you someone. But I trust my clients implicitly. They are wildly talented. They have exquisite taste because they are wildly talented. And so, yeah, a referral from a client is a big deal. That goes to the top of the list to read.
So we have one question that is kind of also tags on, like there was someone who was writing poetry and there's someone else who writes plays. and they talk about it maybe being more challenging to find an agent. Is
Yeah,
there some stuff that's just harder to sell?
I don't know. I don't represent either of those, so I can't speak to it on the pros and cons or how easy or difficult it is. I just don't. I don't represent Christian themed books either, so I can't speak to the Christian market.
And I think that's a really good point, that you need to research your agent a little bit. At the start of this, I talked about the fact that for me, Barbara was my second agent. It took me a while to find true love. And because I was out looking for another agent, I did a lot of homework, and I was reading a lot of columns that Barbara had in Writer's Digest, and I liked her. I also knew that someone I really respected, an agent, Janet Reed, liked her a lot. And Janet didn't represent the kind of books that I wrote, but when Janet says this is someone you should reach out to, that definitely calls.
Yeah, it is incredibly rare that somebody, like if Holly refers someone or Janet refers someone, it's incredibly rare that it's not a love match, because Janet and Holly know me so well. That would be that, and I would do the same for them. Like if I'm referring someone to them, it's because I'm like, oh, I think this is a love match. It's very rare, but it's because it's rare, it's because it usually works.
And I'm going to tell a little story about our love match, just
dear.
because I think it is useful for people. So when I was out looking for my second agent, I was currently under contract with a book with HarperCollins. I had done work with Simon Schuster, and so I was reaching out, which is a good place to be looking for an agent. So I had reached out to several, and most got back to me and were like, 100% would love to work with you. Barbara reached out to me and said, I really like your stuff, but I feel like you're the smart kid in the back of the classroom who goes out and smokes behind the gym instead of doing your best work.
I did?
Yes. So if we were going to work together, you would really need to push yourself. And I honestly, like, I remember hanging up the phone and saying, what a bitch. Like, who does she think she is? And it stuck in my craw, but I kept going back and forth, and I was like, she's right. And I think, this came out, we were having a conversation among writers that you want a critique group that is going to push you. You want an agent that is going to push you. And sometimes that means it's your agent's job to say, this isn't quite right.
Recently I had a client where she was really pushing an idea that I did not think was viable in the marketplace. We went back and forth on it. Finally, I was like, okay, I'll do, she's very well known. I'm like, I'll do a test batch with this and see what we get. And we got a whole bunch of no's. So then she wrote something in the lines of what we were discussing, and I sold it overnight. So like, it was one of those things where I'm not doing this to be an asshole. I'm actually looking at it in a whole 360-degree world for you. Another story I will tell is there was a very, very big young adult author, huge New York Times bestseller, who is moving agents and wanted to have a meeting. And we sat down for a meeting, and I said, here's where you are, here's where I see you going. And if this is not where you see yourself going, please don't pick me. And like during the conversation, she's like, you are my dream agent. I've been waiting to have this conversation. I'm like, okay, but here's where you are. Here's where I see you going. We had an amazing time, great meeting. I was going to the subway. I was walking back from the office, and I was going to the subway, and I was like, she should not pick me. I'm scared she's going to pick me because she thinks I'm her dream agent. Like, she needs to hear what I'm saying. And she ended up the next day, 2 days later, emailing me and saying, I don't see that career path for me. I don't. And it was really hard for me to talk to you about that because you were my dream agent. And that's why I think you got to cut off. There's no dream agent. You got to hear the plan that's in front of you. And I was so relieved, because it's not my job to drag you kicking and screaming through your career. It's my job to facilitate your career. And so there's no world in which you make a wrong decision unless you're doing it because you think someone is a dream agent. And also, that is the best story. And also, you should be asking to talk to an agent's other clients. You should say, I'd love to talk to Eileen Cook. I'd love to talk to one of your clients. And you're going to ask them 2 questions. You're going to say, what is your agent very good at? And what could your agent improve on? Because that's 2 things that are going to give you the bookends on kind of like what other questions that you want to ask me when we talk.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to remember those questions.
You're never getting another agent.
When other people ask me for advice. Nice save there. Nice save. All right. We have a couple, I think, probably rapid fire ones. Is there a minimum word count on a YA contemporary? For example, would 60,000 words be too short?
Perfect. Next question.
That was easy.
Yeah.
All right. In terms of this, with signing a contract, what percentage is typical for an agent?
UK 85, I take 15. However, film deals, my film agent takes 10, I take 10, so that's 20. Foreign, my foreign agency takes 15, I take 10, that's 25.
Thank you very much. And that's fairly industry standard.
The only one that's not industry standard is the foreign, because we use Barrar International and they're single-handedly the best in the business. And you never notice that extra 5% because they're just making it rain dollar bills.
We like the raining of the dollar bills. Mm-hmm. Here's one again, I think I know the answer to. Should a manuscript be finished before you query?
Yep.
I liked that face. Can we make it again?
You have to have it finished, and here's why. What if that day I ate my Wheaties and I happen to be in queries the second you hit it, and I'm like, oh, I want to see this, and I request it, and then you're like, oh, okay, it should be done by June. Where am I in June? What's going on in June? What so many, all of a sudden you've given me a taste of something. I'm like, oh, I did want an upmarket suspense featuring a talking dog. And then you've gone away, and then somebody else comes in and is like, has an upmarket suspense with a talking cat. And I'm like, well, this is kind of in the vein. I'm going to go this way. And then you come back to me in June and I'm like, oh, I have one already, because you've already sparked my idea about what I want to be looking for right now. So you want to get right in there with your manuscript.
You realize right now, everyone just started a book about a talking dog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you like mashups in YA? For example, historical with a speculative twist.
I like good writing in YA.
I love how complicated you make things. All right. Would you ever look to republish a book that was done badly by a small e-publisher? Could that be done?
I did it one time. I would never do it again, probably. It was incredibly difficult. Like I said, the ISBN numbers, the idea of how to launch it, the idea of you've already kind of tapped into the audience. It's already been out there. It has numbers. Sales team is going to go to their meeting, and the vendors are going to be like, but we see this book has already been out. Like, it's going to be a little bit hard. I did it one time, maybe 9 years ago. Yeah.
Another rapid fire question. When people are out looking for an agent, is it better to send out one query at a time and wait for the answer? Or
absolutely not. No, you send out 30 queries and you keep a spreadsheet, and then you reward yourself every time you get 5 rejections.
We are big fans of rewarding ourselves here. So I'm going to put a call out to people in the book. Funny you should ask. In the back, there is Publishers Bingo, where there are bingo cards where you can basically hang them in your office, and you can basically see if you get a bingo. And so there are things like,
oh, and she's gone again. So there are things like, so this is the publishing bingo. And there are things in the squares like, you're on submission to agents. So you have to put a little bingo mark. Someone asks you, like, or someone mentions a lame book that's dominating the New York Times list. First revisions return to your editor. You have 5,000 followers on a social media platform. It's just like really funny things. And there's a whole bunch of different ones in here. And the goal of it is to, like, this is tough stuff. If this was an easy business, everyone would do it. So this is hard. And so it's just reminding you to kind of bring a little levity to what you can, and try to find the fun, try to sit in the moment and find the fun when you can. Welcome back, Eileen. Oh, she's frozen. Okay, I'm gonna look at this. Okay, what is the flavor of the month? I got it, look at me, look at me. Okay, what is the flavor of the month as the best database for researching and finding agents that represent a genre? Hey, Kevin, I don't know because I'm not looking for an agent, but I would suggest, like, one of my favorite things to do is to go to your, well, now everyone's quarantined, but go to your bookshelf at home and look at who the publishers are of the books that are in your genre, and look in the acknowledgments and see who the authors have thanked, because they better thank their agents. And you can start to compile a list there of agents. Also, Writer's Digest has a book of agents, like a book of agents and editors, I'm sure. But yeah, I think going to actually read the acknowledgments of books is what I would say is, especially books that I've published in the last 2 years, is a great resource.
Thank you for filling in there.
Yeah.
Someday I will have working Wi-Fi again.
Mhm.
Do you participate in Twitter pitch contests or any of those kinds of things, or do you go to conferences?
I used to. I'm sorry, getting a phone call. I'm terribly important. Um, um, I used to. I have since had 2 children, and they sometimes forget what I look like because I'm at work all the time. So I don't do as many conferences as I used to. And as far as like pitch wars or Twitter pitches or anything like that, no, because I'm pretty verbal that like pitches don't sell books, the material does. So I'll just be like, if someone's like, can you be on this Twitter pitch thing? I'll be like, no, but I'll tweet out my query inbox because I need to actually see the pages. Like you can pitch something, but that's why I don't do pitches at conferences. If I do go, I never do pitches. Because it's really hard on you guys. It's like, people are like, and you're an author, you're not a pitch, you're not a salesman, and so it's hard to talk about your book. Eventually I'm going to teach you how to talk about your book, but it's really hard to pitch a book. And then I'll be like, I don't know how you write, like, come on, send it to me. So I don't do that anymore. Just go to my queries, send me the stuff.
So I have a 2-part question. What kind of stuff are you looking for in general? And is there anything in particular? There's one question is like, is there anything in YA that you're looking for?
I mean, I know you're going to want to punch me in the throat, but I'm looking for good writing across any genre. I'm looking for a captivating voice. I'm looking for relatable characters. I'm hearing my children wrestle in the background. I'm looking for stories to be told in new and invigorating ways, because there's no real new stories, but there's new ways to tell them. I'm looking for, if your critique partner says, man, this reminds me of Jordan Peele, I'm your girl. If your critique partner says, oh, this is like something Tina Fey would write, I'm your girl. If your critique partner's like, this kind of feels like Jonathan Tropper, or whoa, this is like Nick Petrie or Lee Child, or someone's like, wow, this sounds like Greg Hurwitz, I'm your girl. If someone's like, this sounds like Renee Adia, she's mine. She is a YA author, historical fantasy. If someone's like I'm just looking for good writing. The things I'm not really looking for, like we said, I don't do poetry, I don't do screenplays, I don't do Christian market. My main thing is I really, really struggle with any female character that has a sexual assault either happen in the book on the page or has it as part of her character makeup if it's not organically done. Like my example is Room. Like that transcended the idea of what exploring sexual assault in a novel looks like, as far as I'm concerned. But I have a really hard time with, serial killers going after ladies and doing horrible things to them. But I do like a thriller. I love a good thriller. I love a good, like, if you can imagine Vin Diesel in the lead, I'm in, like, totally. Anything, if someone says, oh, this is like Guy Ritchie, I'm your girl. So it's always going to have some kind of edge to it. But I would love to find a comedic market fiction or comedic commercial fiction. I'd like to find more rom-com with a little bit of edge and a little bit of humor to it. And as far as YA goes, I'd love to find some really humorous laugh out loud YA.
All right. So this is kind of related to that is, what does an agent really mean when they write back and they say, either I love your work in writing, but it doesn't fit my list, even though you picked it because it's supposed to fit their list, or they say, I love it, I just didn't love it enough. What do you really mean when you say that?
Okay, so it feels false when we say that, but it's true. So you want me to love your stuff. You don't want me to be like, meh, I think there's a dime or two here. You want me to just like, you are a genius. You want that because I'm going to knock on doors till my knuckles bleed, and we're probably in this together for 30 years. So let's make sure that I love your stuff and that I'm not just making a penny. I would also say that when I say that, it's subjective. I was just talking to someone about this huge book, gigantic book. Like I can't even say the title. I can't even start to say the beginning of the title because you'd be like, I hated it. I mean, with a white hot passion, hated it. And I am so confused about why it's a thing. Well, it's subjective, right? My life experience is informing what the book's about, or my life experience is informing how I'm relating to the book. So when I say I didn't love it enough, it's not brushing you off. It's the actual truth. Because let's hang out for 30 years, right?
So, and I think one of the things I've said to people before is to think about, I read a lot, right? So I go through all these different books, but like, what's the last book that made you post on your social media or call a friend and be like, oh my God, I love this. Now imagine that you're doing that, but you're saying, why don't you give me $75,000 or $100,000 for this? So, I mean, it has to be not just that I like it, but it has to be that you absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's an impossible relationship to describe too. It's like I'm starting to read, and like every query I open, I'm hoping it's the one. Every single one. I'm like fresh-eyed, and every time I click it open, I'm like, this could be it. And when I start reading, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is kind of good. This is kind of good. And then I request it, and I'm like reading more. I'm like, this is kind of good. I'm just praying that it stays that good. I am praying. I'm rooting for you so hard that it stays good. And so when I get to that ending, I'm like, oh, they did it, you know, and I get to, sometimes I email like 2 a.m. to be like, this is genius. You want that enthusiasm. I mean, maybe other agents are different. I'm only me. I don't know. But like, I have to feel like 2 of the books that I've signed, I had no business signing. And I'm like, I have to be a part of this book's story. I have to be a part of your journey, or I won't be able to sleep that night. And it worked. I sold them. But I was like, I have to be a part of this.
I remember when you were reading With Malice, which is the book that Barbara and I started working with, she kept emailing me throughout the day, and she'd be like, so this person did it, right? Don't tell me. And then she would like,
don't tell me, but this person did it. I totally figured it out. Oh yeah, it's really hard to stump me. It's hard to trick me. And so when like I'm reading something and I'm like, oh, don't tell me, doesn't it? And like, if you do trick me at the end, like with Malice got tricked at the end, I'm like, yes, because it's really hard to trick me.
So yeah, without a doubt. What do you think about having an established social media presence? Like, are you looking for people to have, as they say, kind of like a platform or that kind of thing?
Not for fiction. I don't really mind. I would say the one thing that I would care about is if you were trolly on social media. I saw that you were bashing other authors or, espousing racist political views, I'd be like, oh, not for me, So I think that's the only thing that I would say about social media. I don't really care about that in fiction at all.
Yeah. And for people, like, you will be building that. That's part of what you'll be doing. And the publishers can help you with that if you're going
for sure.
So that's a big one. This is an interesting one. So let's say that you're a person of many talents. So you have maybe a couple of different things. You have a women's fiction, you've got maybe a YA idea. You also love to illustrate, so you could do kids books, those kinds of things. Should you be querying one project at a time, or should you be letting them know that you are a Renaissance woman?
You are querying one project at a time. And then when I call you to say, I love this book, I'm definitely interested in signing you, I will say, what else do you like? What else do you have? Because I'm going to start putting together my vision of your career. Now I will say something very important. Writing is very different than publishing. So you can write books, but once you get in the machine that is publishing, it's a very different monster. So what I like to do, ideally, is get you through one cycle of a book. So contract, delivery and acceptance, publicity, marketing, publication. And then I'll say, okay, why don't you give me that YA you were talking about, so that because sometimes a client will be like, okay, whoa, I want another like 6 months before I give this to you, because this is a lot to think about. So yes, great. I want those. I have many clients that write in many different genres. And I gestured up because it's like Brady Bunch, you're above me. But I want to make sure that they can handle the beast first.
Handling the beast is a good thing. What do you see, like, because I think a lot of people think of the agent's role as selling the book, which is obviously a big one. But once the book is sold, what do you see as your role?
I mean, I mostly just buy shoes and day drink. I don't, it's impossible to describe like my role, like how I see my role. It just is what it is. For example, in a recent political election that we had in America, the next morning, 8 of my clients called and said, I don't know who to call, but whenever there's a problem in my life, you seem to fix it. So can you, what should I do right now? So it's like therapist, spouse, I don't know. It's all day, every day. All I can say is I work 50 hours a week, and I'm working the whole time, and I don't even read until after that. I'm not reading during the day. I'm reading at night, on the weekends, whatever. So my whole work week is taken up with facilitating the art that you guys are giving me, and in a variety of ways.
Which reminds me, when I called Barbara when my life fell apart about 1.5 years ago, and I found out I was going to be getting a divorce, which I certainly didn't want. and I was crying on the phone because, yeah, like, who do you call but your agent to share your marital problems? And Barbara said to me, someday, honey, we're going to monetize the shit out of your pain. And I actually wrote that down, and I put that on my desk, and I have gone back to it several times. And it actually, it made a difference for me. So,
oh my gosh. And we are, I mean, I'm a terrible human being, but we are.
we're working on that right now.
We're working on it right now.
So, question which is kind of related to that, like, how do you suggest authors deal with editorial feedback? So authors will be getting editorial letters, and if they're pre-publication, they may be getting it from critique partners that makes them want to cry.
Okay, first and foremost, when you get your first ever editorial letter, you will cry. You for sure will cry, and you will be like, why did they even buy this? I'm a hack. They made a terrible mistake buying me. This is too much money they've given me. They're going to ask for it back. It will be, it just like peels every layer of your imposter syndrome wide open. So you will cry. You'll cry whether it's 6 pages long or 17 pages long, or says thematically we need to, like recently there was a client that they said, you know, we need to cut the first 60 pages. And she was like, why did you even like this book? And I'm like, no, just give them a chance to explain it. I have never had an author who after the revision process was like, this book, I mean, every single time the author is like, this book is, I had no idea I was this good of a writer. I had no idea I had this in me. I had no idea that this had this much more to grow. And I'm so proud of this book. And I'm so excited about this book. So they know what they're doing, but it's an incredibly painful process. You go ahead and call me. You can call me and cry. I do it all the time. And I'm like, yeah, it is scary. It's really tough. I hear you. And then and I'm like, okay, my shoes don't buy themselves. So you go type now. Okay, thank you.
Where do those handbags come from?
I know.
There's
right?
only one way to get them in the door. But I think that's just important for people to understand. I love that you said the first time you get an editorial letter is if that's actually going to change. I have been doing this a while. The only thing that is different is that I know that feeling. So behind the scenes peek, Barbara and I had a phone call yesterday because I'm working on a project. And of course, what do I want Barbara to say? This book is
brilliant.
Perfect.
You're a
I've
genius.
already sold it. I just, was waiting to call you to tell you that we have a, $1 million offer. And sadly, that was not what she said.
But with Malice, I did. With Malice, I was like, this is genius. I don't think I touched, that would have rare occasion. I don't know if I touched a word on that before I went out with it. And that was
I wanted you to do that again. And she did not do that again.
Not.
So the disappointment was, or for an author is there's that moment where you're like, I cannot fix this. I don't know how to make those changes.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to understand, like, you've just got to take a step back.
Go for a walk, set it down for a day, just go. And what I like to encourage my authors to do also is like, read it, cry, fully clothed in the bathtub, then call me, cry some more, then put it down for a day. And then the next day, email your editor and schedule a time and then 3 days to talk about it. Because you're going to go back to it and all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I guess the dad is an unnecessary character here. I can pull him out of the whole novel and I can do it. Like, you'll start to have these ideas anyway. But that's how I can combine, your feelings with actions, is to say, feel all the feelings, reach out to your editor and schedule something 3 or 4 days from, or even next week to discuss the edits.
Okay, a couple quick ones. Well, will there be an audio version of your book?
That would be so fun because I'm married to an audio actor. I'm married to a voiceover actor, an actor in general. And he has lots of actor friends. And so I said, if you ever want to do this, we can do the audiobook with me and people. So it's an option, but they haven't exploited those rights.
And how do you feel about a couple of different markets? So, for example, do you take fantasy? And if not, is there someone else at Eileen Goodman that's good?
YA, I do some YA fantasy. The bar is really high on YA fantasy for me. I have some big heavy hitters, so my bar is pretty high on that. I would say adult fantasy. I was just saying to my new assistant, I would really like to find, some delicious, fabulous fantasy. Like we were just watching Willow. Remember Willow? Like stuff like that, something like that I would love to find. But to be honest, like, you'd probably go to Miriam Chris at my agency. She's the guru of that. But I would love to find something. If someone would, that's one of those I'd be like, I have no business representing this, but you gotta let me. That's one of those.
What about the YA sci fiction market? Someone's heard that it was essentially dead. Agree?
It's struggling,
Disagree?
but I don't think anything's dead. And here's why. I mean, everything is cyclical. Publishing is cyclical, but all it takes is one breakout. And then all of a sudden I'll get all these phone calls like, do you have any of this? Do you have any of this? So one of my favorite books, M.K. England's The Disasters, that came out last year. And then Spell Hacker came out this year, and she's incredible. Those books are fantastic. And Harper didn't put like a big push behind them because they felt kind of the same thing, which I think was a travesty. But the books themselves are selling just fine, and you've got to read The Disasters. If you read any YA sci-fi, you got to read The Disasters.
So good reading one to do. How about literary upmarket fiction?
Well, first of all, you said two things there. Literary and upmarket are two different things. It would go commercial, upmarket, literary. And why I say it is commercial, the plot drives the novel. In upmarket, the characters drive the novel, and in literary, the prose drives the novel. So sometimes I'll pitch something, I'll be like, this is upmarket dangling its little legs in a literary pool, or I'll say this is literally dangling its legs in the upmarket pool. But yeah, I love it. What was the question? I just got confused by my dangling legs. Yeah, I love it. I represent tons of it. Yeah, I would say Losing Clementine is upmarket dangling its legs in the literary pool.
I think,
and that's about to be a movie. Yeah, that's about to be a movie with Jessica Chastain. I mean, if we all survive and the industry comes back, the film industry, that is, they were supposed to start principal photography at the end of this year. So hopefully.
Yeah. And also Ashley's just another great person. So supporting people is a good thing.
Oh my gosh. Ashley Ream is great, you guys.
Lovely. She showed up when we talk about book events. Here's the thing is a lot of people, you dream of having a tour, but a lot of a tour, unless you are a big name author or you have family in that town, is you sitting at a table directing people to where the bathrooms are.
Yes.
So one of your things is when you go someplace is to desperately trying to get other people to show up. And whenever I've been down to Seattle, Ashley has shown up for me.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Which basically means I will love her forever. All right. Here's a question about pen names. Is it ever a good idea to use one? Do you have to copyright it? Do you have to protect it in any way? When would you suggest someone use one or not use one?
If you're writing erotica and then you also want to write like upmarket comedic fiction, I would be like, your erotica audience is going to get really confused. They're going to be like, what's happening? And your upmarket fiction audience is going to be like, oh, here's the next Stacy Spaceman. And then be like, what is happening? So I would say in those cases, that's a good idea. Sometimes if you are an author, and I have an author doing this right now, and her last book was like 7 years ago. And in the meantime, she took a step back to have some kids and live her life. And then she came back and they're like, let's change the last name slightly because there is an existing track record and it was 8 years ago. It's incredibly ridiculous and I can't stand it. And if you have, and that goes to speaking, if you have kind of a bummer track record, like if you had 2 books come out from Macmillan and, 2014 and 2015, and they just were kind of, maybe sold 3,000 or 4,000 copies a year. They just didn't quite make any bells ring. That's going to be a little bit hard because vendors are looking for any reason to say no. Sales has to work so hard to get these books purchased. So we want to prevent any reason for saying no off the cuff. And so sometimes a name change, like, so I all of a sudden be like, JP Poelle or something like that. So whatever.
Perfect. Now this is kind of a follow-up question. Is on social media, and I love how this is worded, so I'm actually just going to read the question as it is. What about if on social media you reflect a deep distaste for a particular powerful leader?
I don't follow.
Not necessarily distasteful, but that would clearly show your lack of respect for such leader. Would that make you not sign a client?
Freedom of speech is very important to me on every single level. What I cannot abide is racist or inflammatory language towards any group. So, get angry, say what you want. Freedom of speech also includes racist and inflammatory language. I just personally am not going to give that my attention, but I believe in freedom of speech and I defend it.
So there's a question here about that you do some editing work with clients. Is that correct? And is that common among agents?
I'm only me. I don't know the commonality, but I would say, yeah. Sometimes I get, roll up my sleeves and go elbows deep. And sometimes I do very surface dust up, but yeah, it depends on what it needs.
And I would say that when people are talking to agents and you're doing that interview stage, that is one of the questions you can ask is,
For sure. How much editorial work do you see for this? And I'm always going to lie and be like, I mean, everything needs a little tweaking. But then I'm going to, like, when you sign with me, I'm be like, okay, so the second act, we're getting rid of it.
so, but some people are desperately do not want their agent to have their fingers on it. So I do know there are agents who are very clear. They do not do any editorial.
Oh.
They will send out what you give them and that is it. So,
Okay.
I might have a little question as to whether or not, that's a good idea, but in general,
I mean, I love it. I love, like, when I got with Malice and I'm like, I'm not touching a word of this. I'm not touching one word. And I went out with it, but that to me was a privilege and an excitement. It wasn't because I don't like to edit stuff.
Yeah. I wondered if you would quickly describe, because it is one of my favorite exercises, although I am going to critique you slightly, your 24 in 24 exercise in the book. Can you describe what it is?
Okay. It has 100% success rate. Nobody panic, but it's 100% successful in finding what you're going to write next, because and then me selling it. So what it is this. This clock is 24 hours. You are going to sit down and write a title and a couple of line premise for 24 books in that 24-hour period. So, like, at first you're going to sit down, and the moment you start, okay, it's whatever, 1:48 p.m., and you're going to start, and now you have until 1:48 p.m. tomorrow to get all 24 of these ideas. And through that, we will 100% of the time find what you're going to write next.
And so one for people, we'll put the link in the chat window, but you can download the handout from Writer's Digest that has it in it. And here's my critique. Barbara did this to me when we had our conversation about being agents. This is actually where With Malice came from. With Malice was one of the books that was in this list that I was coming up, but I did not get 24 hours.
What did I give you?
You gave me an hour. You said, I'm calling you back in an hour. I'm reading the exercise and I'm like, wait, one hell of a moment here.
Well, I mean, I had already laid the groundwork for you that I'm like, I know that you're smarter than this. And I know you've been skating by on your looks. So here we go. And I think I was pushing too hard. It worked. Why are you mad? Why are you mad? Where's the lie? It worked. It worked.
Saying there was some stress. There was some anxiety there. This gray hair, that's coming in now. So you say that you're keen to help authors with their career. If the author's a bit older, would you be any less interested in signing them?
Wait, older? Like an age-wise?
Yeah.
No.
Like if someone was 68, 70, would you be like, I'm not helping you, you're too old?
No, that's called discrimination, and I don't support that.
Good to know.
No. I've had clients in their 70s. I've had clients in their early 20s. I don't really care how old you are, as long as you can write good. Like, put all the candles you want on your cake. Just send me your manuscript on time.
Yeah. Or lie about your age. I've been known to do that. All right. What's your response time like these days? And do you respond to all queries, or is a no mean a no? How long should they wait?
That was the shame shrinkage. I'm a mess. I mean, my priorities are, to do my clients for 40, 50 hours a week. And then I'm reading requested manuscripts. And so, and Janet Reed and I get in a fist fight in a bar probably once a year over this. I don't respond individually to queries. What you get is an autoresponder that says, I have received your query. And if you don't hear from me in 8 to 10 weeks or sooner, you can consider that I have passed on this. And it's just, I know, but no buts. I would like to be better about that. However, I do read them, and I do my best to try to request within 8 to 10 weeks. I closed to queries for a whole couple of months. My husband was gone in California doing a show for 3 months, and I was like, so I closed for queries, and now I'm pretty much caught up. So I think I'm 4 weeks out. To me, like that's caught up. 4 weeks out is being 4 to 5 weeks out is being caught up.
And I am going to put a call out that I do appreciate that one of the things that you do is you do send the autoresponder that lets people know their query has been at least received. Because I think for a lot of people, we enter into that rabbit hole of like,
yeah,
did she pass or did she just not get it? And is it like, can I just check and be like, for sure, did you get it? Like,
yeah, and the thing
at least to know it was received does go.
Yeah, and the thing that totally stinks is that I put that no queries until January 14th thing up, and then it turned off, and then I had no autoresponder on until today. So all the people that queried me from January 14th to today were just like, that asshole just never respond. So they don't even know. And so I'm sorry if anyone has queried since January to now. I forgot to put the old autoresponder back on. So I just did it today.
What made you want to become an agent?
I was looking for something really easy and really lucrative.
Something a couple hours a week, you could make a lot of money.
Just something I could like do on the side.
Okay.
No, actually, I have a secret history in Los Angeles. I mean, doing comedy, sketch, stand-up, and improv, and as a film, television, and stage actress. And I got really tired of trying to stay, 104 pounds and like living on Diet Coke and broken dreams. And I was in a show with my husband, actually, and we're doing a show, and I was mentioning to him, I was brushing my teeth, and I was like, I don't, this isn't giving me a sparkle anymore. I'm not, and it was an incredibly successful show. We're getting paid very well. It's like, this doesn't sparkle me anymore. I don't know. And Travis, my husband, was brushing his teeth, and he's like, you should be a literary agent. And I said, what's that? So Travis takes 100% credit for my career, but he said, the thing about you, the two things you love the most are reading and giving your opinion. And I was like, well, yeah, because it's right. And he said, you should look into this. So I started looking into it. I went to informational interviews with agents, flew out to New York because we were living in LA at the time, flew out to New York, met some editors, and just really started applying myself to what would this look like. And then Travis's agents were out in New York anyway. And he wanted to move out here. So I was like, well, let's make the move and see how it goes. It was very quickly apparent to both of us that my skill set is better at agency, much better than editing. I'm just a much better agent than I would be an editor. And so I started pursuing smaller boutique agencies that had women bosses, because to the surprise of no woman anywhere on the globe, I'd had some icky experiences with male bosses. None of us have ever had that. So I was like, I'm just gonna start with female bosses here. And so Irene clicked on the email for whatever reason and invited me in for an interview. And that's how I became an agent. My husband brushing his teeth. That's how I became an agent.
That seems reasonable. So I know there was a question about, do you read all 10 pages or do you make a decision sooner than that?
I can decide a yes in a couple paragraphs and I can see a no in a couple paragraphs. The maybes are what makes me read the whole thing, where I'm like, something's happening here. Let me see how this plays out. Let me da. But the 100% yeses, I can tell within a few paragraphs, and the 100% no's I can tell.
And why are most literary agents female?
I don't know.
I didn't either. Like, I was really curious how you
the entire industry is female. I mean, editors, it's incredibly female dominated. And I wonder, I'm going to get deep here for a second. I wonder if it's because as boys aren't as encouraged to just sit and read a book, and maybe they don't facilitate or foster a love for literature the way that girls do. I don't know. It's a known fact. We talk about it all the time, but then, on the corporate side of things, it's usually men who are at the CEOs and top positions, but all the labor workforce, all that, editors, agents, the majority are women. I never really thought about it too much.
Someone else put in the chat window that women are kick-ass.
Well, I mean, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Huh.
I will make an argument, just kind of a thing to end on, is really wanting, again, someone who is passionate for your work and really excited for what you do. And that is who you want as an agent. We had a question yesterday that was like, should I be taking a lower advance to try and get, maybe more support in another area? And I shared the story that when we took out with Malice, you called me in the morning and you gave me news that we had a 6-figure offer. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. I'll take that. And you were like, no. And I'm like, no, I just want more marketing money. And you were like, let us get more marketing money and more money in general.
Yes. Let's just yes and. Let's yes and.
Yes and that is what you are looking for, because I think the reason, and we had a question about why go traditional versus indie. For me, one of the biggest reasons was I wanted a partner in this business. Barbara does not work for me. We work together. We're a partnership in this.
I mean, I kind of work for you, but sure, we're partners.
Yeah, we're partners. I certainly, I think when we're looking for agents, there's such a desire. And I think I even saw some place at one point in the window, like, the agent I like best will be the agent that likes me. And I know that feeling so well, but that's really not what you're looking for. You're really looking for someone where it is a passionate love match.
Mm-hmm.
Just my way of saying I adore Barbara Poelle.
Oh, thank you. The
There
feeling's
you go.
mutual. But I totally work for you. That's 100% I work for you.
Let us just remember that later. Like, I notice I don't have a drink, for example. All right. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Tons of questions. I want to thank Barbara for her time. Very much appreciated. I know you're busy. I also know that you're trapped in a small New York apartment with two kids and a husband.
This is just my office. Like, this apartment rocks. Like, I have a door that closes. The kids are like 2 hallways away. I don't know doing what, but no, I love working from this apartment almost too much. Oh, and I wanted to say, if anyone's going to query me at barbara.queries@irenegoodman.com, put the conference name in the subject line.
All right. That's the Creative Academy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.